Hello everyone and welcome back to Crayon Code. Today we're going to build 5 awesome button interaction effects. So let's get started with a little markup, which is basically just a link with a class, and the first class we're going to call next because this one should simulate some sort of next button. And for the 4 other links we're just going to put all of them at once because I don't want to switch back and forth between markup repeatedly. So yeah, next was dot, and we have a small little sunrise effect like that one in particular. The second to last one is called slant, and for the final one, let's simply call it liquid. Very nice, good. Yeah, quite unstyled by now, so let's put a little bit of CSS. First of all, let's include a nice little font, Montserrat this time, and let's set up a few variables on the root scope, which is going to be one background color. So let's make it a dark theme today, and the foreground color is going to be a slightly faded white. So yeah, I guess 90% will work, and we will need a border color, which is going to be a very dim white, I guess. Yeah, let's start with 20%. Good. Now let's set up the default font size for 34 pixels. No, not 24, 34 pixels, and a font weight of 200 because, as you can see here, I included the 200 weight. Yeah, I would need the other ones, but yeah, we'll work this way. Good. For the body itself, let's set up a min height of 100 VH, so it's always stretched. And now let's finally make something visible, which means that we will use the background color on the background itself. So, and let's change the font family to Montserrat by default, and using the sans serif font as a fallback if it's not being loaded. Good, yeah, you can already see that the font has changed. I want everything to be arranged a little bit more nicely, so let's use display grid and let's place everything in the center where we are going to have let's not columns, 3 columns that are wrapping nicely around the content. And let's put a little gap around everything because this way it looks much better. Good. Now let's take actual care of a little basic default styling, which means that let's put a little bit of a padding, 0.5 rems and 1 rem on the horizontal axis. So first vertical, then horizontal. Very good. And let's actually get rid of that ugly text decoration, and let's override the color by using the foreground color variable for each one, which is actually not what I would want it to be, so I guess I messed something up. Yeah, FGC color. So yeah, perfect. Good. Let's also put a border around it, 1px solid and the BD color. So now we have every button, and I can see the text is not centered yet, so let's make it a display flex and force the content to the center in both axis directions. Center. Very good. Okay. Now for each effect I'm going to work with the clip path property, but I'm not going to apply to the button itself, but to the before pseudo element, which is why we're putting there. Never forget this property here, because if you omit the content, it will not show up at all, and you will have most likely a hard time finding the cause, just like I did in some situations. And I want the before pseudo element positioned absolutely, and it should fit, or it should span the entire buttons area, which is why I'm sticking it basically to each of the borders by telling it that there is no distance between the corresponding edge and the edge of the button. So this way, and if we're actually going to make it visible, let's simply give it a background color just for debug purposes. Okay, I forgot something here, because it should have position relative for creating its own coordinate system. Very nice. Good. And actually I want this one to be in the background, which is the reason why I'm going to put C index -1, so now we're actually not covering the text anymore. But let's give this a much better background color. So let's add another variable here where I'm going to prepare that a few little gradients which overlap each other, and this is going to be the default background for each not border background. Oh wait, not here on the link itself, but there, background color. And it's not simply a background color, so that's why I'm going to use the default BG, the background property. Yeah, you can see nice little gradient on each of the buttons, and now we're going to remove this gradient with a clip path while the button is not hovered, and it will animate to a new state when it's being hovered and while it's active. So let's, in order to have this transition right away, let's put the transitions property and set it to clip path with the transition duration of 400 milliseconds and being eased out but not eased in. Good. Okay, now for the first effect, which is called next, we are selecting the before, and I want this to be a little bit of an arrow shape, which is why I'm going to use a polygon for the clip path. And we start in the top left corner at 0.0%. The top right corner is initially shifted 0.5 rems to the left and still in the corner. And there's going to be a point in the center, which is why it has for the y coordinate 50%. And it's compared to this one, it's a little bit, this one is a little bit shifted to the left, and this one is actually directly on the edge. And then there's another one directly on the bottom, which is of course also shifted slightly to the left, and as I said, on the bottom, which is why it has 100% as the coordinate for the y-axis. So, and now for the lower left corner, we're simply going to have again 0% very left and 100% to the very bottom. And again on the left, on the very left edge, we have another point which is shifted 0.5 rems to the left and is in the middle. So good. Now you can see that it actually disappeared because we shifted everything to the left, everything outside the viewport. And this is going to change as soon as the next button is hovered and we select the before pseudo element, which is why we are going to modify the polygon clip path. And now for this to actually work, we need to make sure that we're using the same amount of points inside the polygon in the hover state, because only then it's actually transitionable for the browser. So if you use more or less points here now, it will simply jump but not smoothly transition. So let's set up the transition state, which means that we are having the top left corner is slightly shifted to the left again. Not again, but now we shift it slightly to the left. And now the top right corner is going to be to the very right. And the center point on the right edge is going to be slightly shifted outside the viewport because I want to have a shape, an arrowy shape, which is why I shift this point a little bit to the right. So I want to have a right pointing shape. And the top left corner, top bottom right corner this time is directly in the top bottom right corner. And then we have the lower left corner, which is again shifted 0.5 rem to the left. And here the center point is directly on the edge. So now if I didn't mess up something, we should be able to see. I guess of course I messed something up. Yeah, and I think it's this one here. It's 0.5 rems. And you can see we have an arrowy shape, which is nicely fading to the right. And you may have wondered why I used 6 points, which is the reason why I'm going to have an active state. And again, affecting the pseudo element, because I want this, if the user activates this button, shift the entire arrow to the right, just like it does when you click next, which means that we are shifting everything to the right. So the top edge, and in order to preserve the arrowy shape along the motion, we have now 100% plus 0.5 rems again, and still shift all the other edges, which are the lower and the top edge, completely to the right, and here run again 0.5 rem and the middle coordinate. So no comma here. Good, now let's see. And of course again I messed something up, and it's, yeah, here, this one. Yeah, you can see now as soon as the button gets activated, the arrow shape shifts to the right, which makes it look quite nice actually. Now for the dot effect, which is a little bit simpler, we again select the pseudo element, and yeah, we always just modify the clip path. This time it's going to be a circle, which has no radius in the beginning and is positioned at the center of the button. Let's align it nicely. And as soon as the dot button is hovered, we expand the circle. So, and it's also important that we do not shift shape here, because now using a polygon, which would not make sense, but yeah, now using a polygon would also prevent the clip path to be transitionable. So we stay with the same shape. And now we make it actually 50% in the radius, and we keep it in the center. And now let's also make the active effect. So in the end, we want the circle to cover the entire button, which means that we are using 100% as the radius and keep it at the center, 50-50. So that's actually the syntax of the circle function, which means that this is the radius, then there's always the at keyword, and then you can put two numbers or two measurements which define the center of the circle. So let's give this a try. You can see the circle nicely expands, and then, yeah, and I think I messed again something up. So this is the dot here, and you can see it nicely expands. Good, okay, so we have 3 more to go. Let's take care of the sunrise effect. So the initial default state for the sunrise effect is again a circle. And the circle is sized with 40% at its radius, and being positioned horizontally in the center, but completely off the viewport with 200%. And so as soon as the user hovers over that button, we're going to modify the clip path circle such that it slightly increases its size and also moves a little bit more upwards. And as soon as the user activates the button, so actually clicking it, we are again modifying the clip path to make the circle cover the entire button and moving its center to the center of the button. So let's give this a try. Very nice. So sun rises and completely expands upon interaction. Very good. Okay, good. So 2 more to go. For the slant one, the default state is not again a circle, but this time a polygon, which is actually only going to have 4 edges, one in the top left corner, and we keep it there. So we have both the top points in the very left corner, and the lower ones are shifted 1 rem to the left, and of course are positioned at the bottom. And as soon as the user hovers over the slant button, we shift the right edge completely to the right, but keep the slant shape, which means that, let's set up the polygon again for this state. The top left corner stays in the top left corner, so 0%, 0%. The top right point will actually move to 100% plus a little bit more to the right. the lower right point will move to the complete lower right corner, while we keep the lower left point slightly off canvas. So let's see if that actually works. Wrong button. Yeah, you can see the slant shape moves in. And now let's actually make the slant shape active before move completely to the right. So, which means that we're going to move the left edge also off canvas by simply also setting it to 100% +1 rem for the top left corner. So we're actually going to put all of them. So the both top points are completely moved off canvas to the right, and the both bottom points are completely in the right hand corner, right hand lower corner. So you can see here, and now slant shape moves a little bit to the right, follows it. And now for the final one, let's call it, we already call it liquid. So default state this time is an ellipse. The ellipse function works actually very similar to the circle function, except that it for the first value doesn't accept one value but two, and one is the horizontal radius, if you can call it like that, and the vertical radius. So we were making a nice ellipse which is 100% in width and only 50% in height, and the rest is actually just with the circle function. You have the add keyword, and afterwards we have the coordinates for the center point of the ellipse, which is in the center but completely shifted down. And as soon as the user hovers over the button, the ellipse is shifted upwards and changed slightly in size. So we keep it in the x coordinate with 100%, but we make it 250% in the y shape, and we are moving it. No, actually, let's keep it the same position at 50% and 200%. Good. Now let's give this a try. Yeah, you can see it's just like a liquid drop flowing. And now for the active state, we make it shift completely upwards such that it flows out of the viewport, which means that we are modifying the ellipse function to be at 100% of width, but we completely shrink it to actually be non-visible in the vertical dimension, and let's slightly move it to 0%, so to the top edge of the button. And when you click, you can see I messed something up. Liquid, yeah, there's a superfluous E. Yeah, perfect. Okay, you can see flows in and flows out in this way. Very nice. Yeah, and that's already it. I hope you enjoyed creating this nice little interaction effects with me. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.